Franklin Delano Roosevelt was born January 30th, 1882. His family was Dutch paternal and French maternal. Both families were very wealthy. From a very early age, it was determined that FDR had a niche for talking to people. He would be found constantly talking to his friends and became very well liked by those around him. FDR at an early age started school in Germany, which is odd because that is the country he would defeat in World War II. The Schmoop biography goes on to say, he also seems to have a gift for gab, or at least for getting his way. When he was 14, he and a tutor went on a cycling tour of Germany. They were arrested several times for minor traffic violations, but Franklin talked his way out of a ticket each time. This does bring me to think of a school that I teach in. We have leader values that each teacher has posted in the room. Each letter has a different meaning to it and represents what the student should do each day to become a leader in society. The letter the above situation deals with is the letter E, standing for effective communication. The explanation for E is as follows. We have meaningful conversations to move our community forward. We effectively communicate our thoughts with powerful, persuasive, and thoughtful language. Although FDR would meet this level of achievement with effective communication many more times in his life, this one stood out. Upon leaving Europe and coming back to America, FDR attended the Groton School for Boys. This was certainly a symbol for the privileged life that his parents gave him that cost a fortune to attend, and there were no scholarships. Groton was very difficult for him because the students there excelled not only in the classroom, but athletics as well. He was not very athletic and failed to fit in with many of the students. The biography.com website goes on to state that FDR, upon completion of Groton, attended Harvard University, where he was a member of a fraternity and was a C student. He did finish in 3 years, but many considered him underwhelming and average. After completion at Harvard, FDR attended Columbia University Law School and passed the bar exam. He practiced law for a few years, but it became boring to him. This is when he set his sights for something bigger. Although FDR was a C student at Harvard and was considered average, many students are thought of this way. Oftentimes this lasts until they find something they are really passionate about. Although what FDR was passionate about was yet to come, it was still important to note the academic progress he made. So seeing he did attend multiple high expectation levels of academia, I feel for this portion of FDR's life he is deserving of the L core leader value. The L standing for learning, and following is what the mission statement says. We strive to learn from everything we do. We always work to get better and support our community. We all know that FDR is famous for his political acts, but how did he get this way? The political arena started out by chance, really. According to an article by Rayco, in 1910 the Democrats asked him to run for a state senate from his Hudson Valley district. He gladly accepted. The article goes on to mention Roosevelt's inability to understand what side he was on. He readily went in favor of good government, which basically meant he went against the Democratic machine at the time, Tammany Hall. FDR spent 3 years in New York State Senate, during which he became a big supporter of Woodrow Wilson. It's not a surprise to many when Wilson offered FDR the position of Assistant Secretary of the Navy. This is actually the same position that his uncle Teddy Roosevelt had held on his path to presidency. This had helped FDR eventually reaching his goals. He had an excellent mentor that helped him along the way, and his boss, Josephus Daniels. FDR went from working with the Navy and went on to try to get a U.S. Senate seat in New York. He did lose in the primary election, but was considered a very prominent politician. He continued to develop his political theory and decided he would run for vice president as James Cox's running mate. They were defeated in the general election, but running for that office gave FDR the push he needed to do more great things. While on vacation in Canada, FDR was found to have contracted polio. He at first did not want to accept the fact that he would never be able to walk again, even going to hot springs in Georgia to help him recover. This did not work, but did provide money by way of March of Dimes, which later found the vaccine for polio. The biography.com website goes on to mention that FDR did not even want to try for politics again, believing his political career was over. With the push of his secretary and his wife, he did continue on with politics, supporting Governor Al Smith in New York for president while attending 2 Democratic national conventions. He was creatively able to make the world unaware of diagnosis with polio, and showing up in public while walking short distances with his braces, and not being seen in a wheelchair. For this, although it is not a leader value, I see it as a very important key to being a leader. That is determination. Through the tough times and many instances where it seemed like FDR was down for the count, he and the ones surrounding him encouraged him to keep moving forward and always strive for more. Roosevelt had been dealt many blows to his career, but at this time, a card was in his favor. In 1928, FDR was elected governor of New York. He did great during his term and was even elected for a second term in 1930. In his vie for second term, he beat his opponent by 7 million votes. After 3 years in office, FDR was ready to make his leap toward his end goal, the President of the United States of America. During his third year of governor of New York, FDR announced his candidacy for president. This was a time at which everything was failing. Everyone was going broke and nothing was really going right for America. It is probably one of the darkest times in our short history. Roosevelt looked to himself for what needed to be done at this time. That was win the country over with his charm and lead America out of this Great Depression. This falls in line with another leader value, this time responsibility. FDR took responsibility and did what he had to do to make America prosper once again. FDR ran an effective campaign for president, beating out Hoover in a landslide. According to an article, the FDA years, only a week after Roosevelt took office, the spirit of the country seemed remarkably changed. Gone was the trophy of Hoover years and gone too the political paralysis. During campaign, FDR promised a New Deal, which he became very motivated to begin. The country had begun to change mentally. Roosevelt's voice had such enthusiasm, such commitment, that people couldn't resist what he was saying. Something about how he articulated his words made everything seem right. This is exactly what the country needed at the time. In his words from the opening sentence of his inaugural address, it certainly rings true. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. Roosevelt was setting himself up to be a tremendous president and a welcome change to what had been taking place. Roosevelt met all of his new challenges with enthusiasm, which is also part of the leader values. He set out to develop and put people to work. He wanted to make sure we were the gold standard again, and he met all this with striking enthusiasm which he always carried with him. Two of the largest undertakings in FDR's first 100 days were the Agricultural Adjustment Act, which limited crop production, raising demand and prices for farmers, but providing farmers with incentives to not grow as much. Also developed was the National Industrial Recovery Act, which set up the National Recovery Administration. This was trying to gain control of American industry by trying to raise prices and demands of goods. Some of the other things that were completed in the first 100 days were a National Bank Holiday, Glass-Steagall Act, FDIC, Federal Securities Act, Civilian Conservation Corps, Tennessee Valley Authority, Public Works Administration, Federal Emergency Relief Act. All of these things did put America to work, and we were needing something to happen. But it did seem to many people that the government was taking over every aspect of every industry. Roosevelt was winning the hearts of Americans through something called fireside chats. This helped him enter America's homes and speak with people over the radio. Many people can be asked about these chats to this day, remembering FDR as someone who was part of the family, everyone gathering around the radio to listen to them. By this time, the war in Europe was going on, America staying out for the majority. The attack on Pearl Harbor marked our time at which we were at war. While this was a very hard time for our country and many people were losing their lives, this is what many maintain that took us out of the Depression. So much money was pumped into the war effort, and all hands were on deck on the home front, that we had an abundance of work and cash flow to help our country survive. Roosevelt spent the last 4 years of his life as a wartime president. The Schmoop's editorial team goes on to state, during the war, Roosevelt deployed all the talents he'd used domestically to lead the war effort. He used the fireside chats to explain the war to the American people and enlist their support in helping win it. He also used those close relationships he had built with the press to give him wiggle room in which to make difficult decisions. And he used the relationships he built with the country's European allies, especially his friendship with Winston Churchill, showed in this photo, to both plan the war and the world order that followed. Although FDR did have his shortcomings as a wartime leader, the impact of the economy back home was great. People were rallying around the president like never before, and we were staged for a great return to prosperity. Before death in 1945, FDR had achieved many great things. This led FDR to exceed in the final Thomas Nelson High School Leader Value, achievement. Achievement, as stated in the Thomas Nelson Leader Handbook, is only accepting quality work from ourselves and others. We demonstrate a strong work ethic to accomplish our academic and career goals. I've grown in my understanding of FDR as a man and a leader. In many ways, our country would not be the way it is today without this great leader at the helm. I think it's the drive, passion, determination, and the leader values that really made FDR stand out from the rest. Character says a lot about a person. If you have it, you can say a lot, and if you don't, you can't say much. FDR certainly carried with him an immense amount of character to face the challenges that he faced. As I reflect on my career so far as an educator, I can ask myself, how can I do better? I know that's what FDR probably did every morning, and it should be what we all do in preparing for another day's work. We all don't have to face the same challenges that he did, but we can face the challenges we have to face with the same laser-like focus and determination that he has when taking in those tough tasks.